Episode 5 of Current MMA Plus, joined by Elliot once again, the OG, going to be breaking down a stacked UFC 269 card. Can't wait for this one. I think, Elliot, any other week, we'd probably spend quite a bit of time jumping into last week's card, talking about some of them great fights, Jose Aldo's performance, bunch of stuff there, but there's no time. We're too excited. We want to talk about 269. Possibly the biggest card of the year. 268 was pretty big. There's been some good ones, but definitely up there. Stacked, 2 title shots, lots to get into, so let's do it. But first of all, how are you doing, mate?
We're doing well, mate. We're doing well. How are you?
Yeah, we're all good. We're all good. Right, so let's jump straight into it then, because like I said, there's lots to go through. We're going to start from the bottom of the card, work our way up, and then maybe a couple of other things after that. And hopefully you can win us some money as well, the usual stuff. So start off the card then, opening it up. Sugar Sean O'Malley. He needs no introduction. Everyone knows who this man is. But probably most interestingly about this fight, it's going to be his first ranked opponent. Hopefully I'll say his name right, Raulian Piva. I mean, we're going to start this one. I'm going to start this one with Sean O'Malley. I'll put that on you. First of all, how much of Sean O'Malley do you think's hype, and how much do you think he's the real deal?
You know what? I think it's kind of like 50-50, not on the aspect of he hasn't got talent. He's got massive talent, but I think the hype kind of joins it together. I don't think he's just hype and no talent at all. I think he really is the real deal. And he's just taking things slow and it makes him look better. I mean, no disrespect to his previous opponents. They're not matching his level. Maybe that's hype or ability, apart from Vera, who, you know, is a fantastic fighter. But it's like now if you beat O'Malley, you're the star. You become a star in yourself. So it's not like it's just O'Malley fight week. It could be a potential of a new fighter to really have a shot in his career.
Yeah, 100%. I think we see it a lot of times for fighters. Obviously, the most easy sort of comparison to make would be Conor McGregor, but Conor McGregor coming up, I think because of the way he talks and how much hype he gets, people almost sort of forget his actual skill set, and you sort of start to focus on the things that he says and does. But you forget that, you know, what he's actually doing in there is pretty amazing. And I think if you just, you know, solely, if it was silhouettes and you just watched his performances, I think it's been unbelievable what he's done against, you know, it might not be the best opponents in the world yet, but it's still UFC fighters. It's still pretty talented guys. So yeah, I think he's a real deal. But his opponent this weekend, his first ranked opponent, Raulian Piva, he's on a little bit of a hot streak at the minute. I think he got most people talking after his last fight against Kyler Phillips, because Kyler was sort of the person that was on the up and looked really good. As an opponent, do you think this is his toughest test yet? And you know, just what are your sort of general thoughts about this one? Do you think it's that real test that we've been waiting for? Do you think not quite yet?
I think Vera maybe was the biggest test. I think he's really promoted himself well now. But hey, look, why not? I mean, it's not a bad fight. O'Malley's not beating anyone big to kind of push him into these like ranked fighters. So it's a good place to start to kind of see where he is.
Yeah. So official prediction then, what are we going with?
It's got to be an O'Malley finish, surely.
Knockout, yeah. I don't know. I think someone as good as Piva, who's went the distance quite a bit with some good guys. You know, O'Malley went about 14 and a half minutes with Chris Moutinho. Chris Moutinho is pretty tough, but you know, not quite up there in terms of you know, he's not close to the rankings, we'll say that. So possibly a decision. But yeah, I'm excited for that one. I think it's a good test. I think even though the Vera one probably was his biggest test, it was a little bit of an anticlimactic fight. I know everybody has their own opinion on whether it was quite a genuine TKO or whether it wasn't, but regardless, I think everyone can agree you know, we didn't get to see enough of that fight and that matchup. So I'm excited for this one. I'm excited to see him you know, probably really get tested and see what he's really got. So moving on then, Cody Garbrandt versus Kai France. Absolutely buzzing for this one because I'm a big fan of both people. I've followed them for a long time. Kai, ever since the Ultimate Fighter, I forget which series he was on now. But ever since then, I was a big fan of him because you don't see many flyweights knock people out. Kai's one of them people. He's got a lot of power. And then Cody Garbrandt, you know, former bantamweight champion. We've seen what he's done, you know, the Dominic Cruzes and all this. Amazing fighter, but sort of had a little bit of a rough run recently, not just inside the octagon, but obviously he's had his health issues as well with COVID. I think he tore his bicep and then got an infection. And then he wants to drop down a weight class. You know, he's had a pretty crazy couple of years ever since he sort of lost his belt. So it's always interesting to see how somebody's going to move into a new weight class. He looks absolutely shredded. He doesn't look like he's just going to cut water. He looks like he's really prepared for it. But I mean, all that aside, all the drama aside, skill for skill matchup, this just looks like an absolute banger on paper. Two strikers, mostly boxers. Fight of the night, what do you think? Is this going to be it?
Yeah, the more I think about it, the better it gets. It's going to be a stand-up war, no doubt. And I think, Cody Garbrandt at a new division, it's just fun anyway. He was always quite small for bantamweight, and he was still knocking guys out. So, this can't not be fun.
I agree. So, in terms of Cody, then, what are we thinking about Cody at the minute? Because it's easy, especially in MMA. It's not really like boxing where you really protect your record. I think MMA, you do sort of have these ups and downs a bit more, but fans still seem to really hold them losses against you. I think when people think about Cody now, they're going to be more thinking about his last couple of fights as opposed to what he done when he was champion. How much of a skid do you think he's really on at the minute? Or do you think he's just, he's come up against it recently and he's still a top guy?
I think he still is a top guy, but I think he's got to change weight. He couldn't just stay at the same weight as he was before and take their losses, because it'd be like another Woodley fight, where he can't really get the momentum back. Where now it's a fresh new start post these COVID complications, and I think it's a fresh new start. And I think if he finishes Karai France, that's a huge message. That's like, okay, we already know how good he is because of bantamweight. We can get him near that title picture almost straight away. I mean, probably not the most fair thing to do, but hey, it's a good idea. And what is interesting as well, I'm looking at their records, and Garbrandt's only had 16 fights. Compare it to Karai France, who's had 31.
Yeah,
it's not like he's over yet. It's not like, is it kind of make or break? He's, like you said, ex-title holder, and he's still new to the game, almost, if you compare it to other people's records.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. I think he's made sort of a smart decision as well, because there was actually talks maybe about a year ago. Timeline gets a bit confusing these days, but about a year or so ago, they were actually talking about putting Garbrandt straight into a title shot. I remember when they were talking about him versus Figueiredo at flyweight. And then that's when he had his health complications and things. But I think he's been smart. If he was rushing into a title shot now, I wouldn't really fancy his chances. But he's taken a fight against, Kai, as good as Kai is. He's not a top guy. He's a bit of a, win some, lose some type of fighter. Doesn't really have that momentum. And he's also a striker. So I think, it is quite a favourable one for Cody, as opposed to sort of rushing to that top three straight away. So I think he's made quite a good decision. I think, as I say, as good as Kai is, if Cody can't win this one, yeah, he probably is not really what he used to be. I think he probably does need a big step back. But at the same time, it's a fight where he can really look good and sort of project himself. So it's an interesting one. Official prediction, what we saying?
I'm going to go Garbrandt finish. I think he's going to go for it, That's what I'm hoping for, and that's what I'm going to go for.
Yeah, I agree. I'm going to go Garbrandt knockout. It's not too long ago we've seen that KO against Rafael Assunção, so I'm not forgetting about that anytime soon. So he's still got that power. Yeah, I agree. I think Cody KO on that one. Interesting one for different reasons up next. Jeff Neal versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. Have you seen the drama around this one?
No, I don't think I've seen the drama at all.
Did you miss it? So it did go under the radar a bit, actually. I think it's probably been swept under the rug until it really gets fully investigated. So, I won't say too much about it in case I speak out of turn a bit. But Jeff Neal was arrested just about a week ago. So the situation, as far as the police report says at the minute, is that he was driving under the influence, and he also had weapons as well. So it was on Thanksgiving, actually. That's when he did it. So, it seems like he was probably having a bit of a Thanksgiving celebration that got a bit out of hand. And he was actually arrested, and then he posted bail. I think Ariel Helwani said it was like a $2,000 bail to get out. So, that's a lot going on building up to a fight at UFC 269. It's, I'm not sure where his head's going to be at the minute. I'm not even sure how he can be on weight and things like that when you're partying so close to a fight. There's a lot of questions that come off the back of that, to be honest. But he's a really good fighter. If I didn't know about all that, I'd probably fancy his chances this weekend. Santiago Ponzinibbio, he's a really interesting one. He's on that massive win streak. I think it must have been around double-digit fights. He went unbeaten nearly for a long time. And then he had the layoffs with some injuries and got knocked out on his comeback. So a bit of a setback for him. But he was someone who was knocking on the door title contention when he was on that run. And again, I think we've got two strikers here as well. I think this could be the first 3 fights of the night. We could be getting some good stand-up battle KOs. So yeah, lots to think about in this one. Really don't know what to think of both fighters because they're in such sort of interesting spots at the minute in their career. But yeah, a lot of information thrown your way there. But what do you think about this matchup?
Now that you've mentioned about the arrest and things like that, I'm kind of going towards Ponzinibbio, where before I was kind of 50-50 each side. Jeff Neal, he looked okay against Wonderboy. If I remember, Wonderboy, I mean, he did dominate Wonderboy, but he didn't look bad, you know. It's not like it was a complete like demolition job. But Ponzinibbio, like you said before, is off and on, especially against his previous opponent, who Chimaev just dominated. It doesn't date well to get knocked out by him.
Yeah.
It'd be interesting. I mean, we will see a lot of people just standing in the pocket and just going for it. And I think it will be a finish, but it will be a great fight regardless.
Yeah, 100%. I think it's going to be one of them cards as well because of how stacked the card is. You know, the prelims, which we don't even have fully time to get into, but we'll touch on at the end. But because of how stacked this card is, because of how big it is, building up to the title fights and things, and then all these stand-up fights, I think it's just going to be one of them cards where people get a bit carried away, the crowd's getting behind them, they're just swinging for it, and people just, you know, take punches that they wouldn't usually take and get knocked out and things. So I think we'll probably have a couple of surprises on this card as well. So yeah, tough one to predict, but definitely interesting. Yeah, hopefully Jeff Neal's all right. I'm not sure what's going on there, but I'm sure he'll have plenty to say about it at the media day. Might even be chatting right now, actually. So I'm sure it'll be out by the time we put this out. But yeah, interesting one. Moving on then onto the first title fight of the night, co-main event, Amanda Nunes versus Juliana Pena. Whenever we talk about an Amanda Nunes fight, it's hard not to focus on her and how dominant we probably always think she's going to be. So I guess I'll just cut to the chase straight away. How much of a chance does Juliana Pena have of, dethroning Amanda Nunes?
You know what? I think, okay, Pena might not win, but I think it would actually be a good fight. It's the first time since Shevchenko we've seen a fighter actually want the Nunes fight.
Yeah,
it seems to be like the sacrificial lamb in most fights where Pena called her out. It's been going on for a while, and it looks like she's just going to go forward and just, she might get finished straight away. We don't know, but it's nice to see that fighter go for someone like Nunes who wants to fight, who wants to be aggressive, as opposed to just surviving. It'd be interesting. I would like to see it go far, because then you kind of see like what she can do once the kind of like the craziness is blown over. So Pena probably will lose. I mean, she's a fantastic fighter, but Nunes is just a whole new level. We're talking about one of the greatest ever. So it'd be interesting. I think we might see something a little bit different.
Yeah, no, I see what you're saying in terms of how much she wanted it. I think everyone had pretty much zero interest in that fight until Juliana spoke about how much she wanted that fight, because as you say, it's not usual for someone to want that fight with Nunes so much. So just that confidence in itself is a big asset. Like when we used to look at like Anderson Silva and all these fighters, a lot of people just go into it already beaten and just sort of deflated and mentally beaten. So it is definitely a bit more exciting when you've got somebody who really wants it and fancies the chances. What I would say about this fight is, if you erased Juliana's Pena fight with Germaine de Randamie, I would probably be a lot more excited for it, because I would think, she's probably going to push the pace. She's got good grappling and things like that. But she got submitted by a kickboxer in Germaine de Randamie. So that really puts me off this matchup quite a lot, thinking about that fight. But, things happen. People get caught, and a fight's a fight. But, I think, I struggle to see any other outcome than a typical outcome. But as you said, hopefully she brings it and we get something a bit different from this fight. So official prediction?
Decision. I'm going decision Nunes. The chances are it probably won't happen, but that's what I'd like to see. So that's what I'm going to go for.
Yeah, no, fair enough. I mean, sometimes it happens where the they're so dominant, they take the foot off the gas a little bit. We've seen it with like Felicia Spencer and things like that, where she's not really in a mega rush to try and put them away. So I could definitely see it. But let's get on to the big one, main event, lightweight title fight. It feels like champ versus champ for me, this fight. I think Dustin Poirier, he's just, for me, he's just been the man of the lightweight division, bar Khabib. So he sort of feels like the champ to me. I think he probably had an opportunity to get that belt a long time ago if he didn't have the Conor McGregor fights lined up. I don't know where to start with this fight. Massively excited for it. Possibly the most excited for a fight this year, I think. Just so much to think about when you look at how many fights both of these have had, how long the UFC careers have been, and they're both sort of realising all that now by, getting the hands on undisputed title. Dustin had the interim one. Oliveira's just got the undisputed one. Poirier, I think if Poirier can win this fight, no doubt fighter of the year. A couple of KO wins, however you want to put it, against Conor McGregor, and then going on and capturing the belt all in the space of a year. I think he's absolutely nailed on for that. Then Charles Oliveira, I mean, he's sort of got a shout for it as well. He hasn't fought much, but he's just sort of snuck up throughout the years, and then had that unbelievable fight against Michael Chandler, got the belt. And then if he can defend that against Dustin Poirier, like really solidifies himself as the sort of king of that division. So I guess let's start with a prediction, and then I'll ask you a couple of questions about each guy. But what are we thinking for this one? Because I think it's really going to split opinions. So how are you seeing it?
Oh, that is hard, because I think if it's a finish, it'll go to Oliveira. I mean, it's not a genius thing to say because he's got the most finishes, but if it goes for a finish, it's Oliveira. If it goes to points, I think it'd be Poirier, and I think Poirier would be dominating him. The more I look at it, like the background and things like that, there's so much that goes into it. But I'm going Poirier. I'm going Poirier.
Yeah, I think Charles Oliveira is one of them people who you just keep counting out. As much as we want to say he's good, and I'm coming from the same line of thinking as you, where I think really competitive, but I'm going to go against Charles. I feel like I do that in every single one of his fights, and then he just keeps winning. So he's definitely the type of person to prove everyone wrong. But I just can't pick against Poirier. I think anyone that fought Khabib recently, that fight doesn't really count because Khabib was just on another level. But apart from that fight, the run that he's been on since he's come to the lightweight division, it's just absolutely ridiculous. And his performances lately, obviously dispatching a Conor a couple of times, beating Eddie Alvarez, Anthony Pettis, Justin Gaethje, just everyone they put in front of him, he's beat. And he's just, he's got no weaknesses, I don't think. There was once upon a time when he seemed like it might be a little bit chinny. That's not been the case at lightweight. He's tough to put away on the feet, and then on the ground as well. He's got really good jiu-jitsu. So I think that's what I put it down to. I see Charles Oliveira's got more weaknesses than Dustin Poirier. I feel like I could see Charles getting TKO'd or sort of dominated or out-muscled, whereas I can't really see many of them things for Poirier. Obviously, anything can happen. He could definitely get submitted because anyone can get submitted by Charles. But yeah, I think that's the way I'm leaning. I think that Charles has got more weaknesses than Dustin. Yeah, that's how I'm going for it. So let's start with Charles first, though. Charles wins this fight. Who would you like to see him fight next?
If Oliveira wins this fight,
yeah,
Gaethje. Gaethje all day. I think he's the next one for it. Although I would like to see Makhachev versus Oliveira, just because the matchup's really interesting. But in terms of who deserves it, I think Gaethje's just that little bit in front. I mean, I know Khabib kind of thinks otherwise, but yeah.
Yeah. So do you think the same for Poirier then? If Poirier wins, you still want to see Gaethje fight Poirier again?
Yeah, I think we can. That rematch is kind of deserved. I mean, Poirier, same with Oliveira. There's so many fighters in the lightweight division, which it would just be fun to make, and you wouldn't really go against the majority of fights that Dana could kind of match up with them. But yeah. Both fighters, Justin Gaethje next.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think got to be Gaethje next, and then obviously we've got Beneil Dariush versus Islam Makhachev. So I think the winner of that will be in line for the one after that. But I think obviously this is thinking way too far ahead, which doesn't really work out for MMA. But I think if Poirier was to win, then rematch Gaethje, and if Gaethje won that one, obviously those two will be 1-1. So the next person might be waiting around for a bit if they get a trilogy going. So we'll see how it goes. Lightweight division, Conor McGregor thinks he's coming back to a title shot as well. So who knows what's going to happen. Lightweights, it's an interesting one. Yeah, we're buzzing for that one. So, too much to go through. The prelims, we can't go through them all because, it's such a stacked card. So I'll put it on you and I'll say, out of the rest of the fights outside of the main card, can you name one fight that everyone should, get the TV on early for and make sure they watch it?
The fight I'm most kind of looking forward to, and I think what everyone else should be looking forward to. You know what? I'm not going to say Dominic Cruz versus Pedro Nunes. I'm not going to say Josh Emmett. Tai Tuivasa. You can't not love the guy. He's so fun to watch. He's just standing there. He's swing for anyone. I mean, he knocked out Greg Hardy recently, which everyone kind of loved. So if you're gonna go in early, watch Tai Tuivasa.
Just for the showy afterwards.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he's just the funniest guy. He's the funniest guy. Fights like he's such like a fan favorite. So easy to watch, and he's just so funny. Like when he wins as well.
Yeah, no, I love that pick. I think I actually almost the amount of fights out on this card, I almost forgot that he was on it, to be honest. But I mean, that's a class matchup. I think we'll just see them two strike. A bit sluggish at heavyweight, but that makes for a fun fight. Well, I think there's no way that one goes a distance or ends up boring. I think someone's getting knocked out pretty early in that one. So yeah, I'm not against that one. I'm also going to be disrespectful. I'm not going to go with Dominic Cruz versus Pedro Nunes, which it should be a main card fight. Josh Emmett versus Dan Ige should be a main card fight, but I'm dismissing them all. I'm staying loyal. I'm going with Bruno Blindado Silva, who, he's been good to me. I've had a couple of interviews with him, so I'm sticking by him. But genuinely, this guy's 100% someone to watch out for. So if Bruno gets a win this weekend, which I genuinely think he does, he's fighting Jordan Wright. Jordan Wright was undefeated until he was knocked out by Joaquin Buckley. So Jordan Wright's a good fighter, but he's predominantly a stand-up fighter. And I think standing up with Bruno is tough for absolutely anyone in that middleweight division. So if Bruno's to win this fight this weekend, and if he gets another knockout, which he thinks he will, that'd be 7 KOs in a row for Bruno Silva, which at this level is ridiculous to get 7 KOs in a row. And he's fighting good fighters as well. He's a champion over in Russia. He's fighting in Brave. Come over to the UFC, wins by knockout in his debut fairly easily. Then fights Andrew Sanchez, the Ultimate Fighter winner, knocks him out pretty brutally. And now he's got Jordan Wright, which I think is a pretty good matchup for him as well. So that'll be 3 KOs in a row in the UFC, 7 in a row in MMA. I think he could get a big fight after that. When I spoke to him, he said that he wants to fight like Robert Whittaker and all these guys. He wants a belt. Like, he's not here to mess around. He's a scary guy. So I'm really looking forward to that one. I love watching him fight. Very exciting guy. But again, tons of fights. This is definitely one that you just watch from the start. You don't tune in later this one. Just get this card on straight away and enjoy it.
Yeah. To interrupt with the Bruno Silva, I remember watching his last fight, and if you're really like a boxing fanatic, his body shots are some of the best and the cleanest you're going to see. Yeah, big fan of Bruno Silva.
Yeah, 100%. Do you have a parlay pick for us? Do you have some money to be won?
I do, and it's going to be a small one. I've got it just here because I had it saved on my phone, but I haven't got my phone here at the moment. So it's not a massive one, and we're not going to have to wait to the kind of main event for it. So we've got Ryan Hall versus Derek Minner. Ryan Hall did get finished early in his last fight. His stand-up's something to be admired. So I've gone Minner to win that fight just outright.
Mm-hmm.
I've done it Tai Tuivasa to win against Augusto Sakai. I mean, I probably butchered his name, but Tai Tuivasa, when he gets swinging, it's pretty fun. Sakai, I mean, it's quite a while ago. He took some damage against Overeem, which I mean, it's never nice to see. But Tai Tuivasa's kind of got hype around him, and it's just fun to watch, and it's a personal favourite of mine. Mm-hmm. Kai Kara France versus Cody Garbrandt. Now, it's a bit of a gamble. I mean, without the pun there, but I think Garbrandt will have a little bit more experience. I mean, at this level, take away how many fights he's had. I mean, the big fights, Garbrandt's almost like every fight he has is a big fight. So I think that will kind of come through. And the last one, so it's only 4, is Sean O'Malley. You can't go against him. I think it's pretty standard. I mean, we're probably looking for a finish. OMalley should be ranked. I think it's fair to say.
Yeah.
So yeah, just the 4 fighters: Minna, Tuivasa, Garbrandt, OMalley. That picks up a lovely little 11-1, which is crazy in just 4 fights.
That is good odds. So it wasn't worth putting Amanda Nunes in there. Not worth the risk.
For the extra couple of pennies, you can have that, because I'll be supporting her. Well, saying that, I'd love the fight anyway, but I'm staying away from that fight. I say with the main event, I can't call it, so I'm not going to gamble on it.
Yeah. I think the main event's one of them ones where you just take money out of it, just enjoy the fight, because you don't know how it's going to go. So I think that's a good shout. I think that parlay is a pretty good shout, actually, especially for the odds. I think I'm going to get on that one. Text you some abuse if it doesn't come in. But,
Yeah.
But no, good stuff, mate. Buzzing for the card. Can't wait for it. And can't wait to talk about it next week as well, after we see what happens, which at this moment in time I have no idea what's going to happen. So that's the beauty of it. Nice one, mate. Cheers for joining us. Looking forward to chatting again, and catch you very soon.
All good. See you soon.